Now, Arkansas did not lose, but gained an offensive coordinator on Thursday, hiring Central Michigan head coach Dan Enos to replace the departed Jim Chaney. Enos was the Chippewa head coach for 5 seasons, leading them to bowl games in 2 of the last 3. He played quarterback at Michigan State. His offense is a pro-style one. Now, when you look more at Enos, his background is offense, obviously. Of course, he was a 2-year starter for the Spartans. Before his stint at Central Michigan as head coach, he was an assistant at his alma mater for 3 years, coaching quarterbacks for 1 and running backs for 2. And he also serves as quarterbacks coach at Cincinnati, or has served there and at Western Michigan. We bring in the head coach of the Hogs, Brett Bielema, now on SEC Now. What about Enos made him the right guy for you, Coach?
You know, Dari, I think obviously there was a lot of interest in this job. The way we played down the stretch, to play good defense at the end, and to know how many starters we had coming back. I thought it was very important to get the right fit, to get a guy that could come in, coach the quarterbacks, more importantly, call our offense. I got a lot of really good coaches in the room, and I wanted to make sure they were comfortable. So I actually, probably a little bit out of the ordinary, I took my coaches with me. I took my whole offensive staff to interview a couple different guys, and the feeling we had after meeting with Coach Enos was a guy that was ready-made, kind of just sitting there ready to pop in. And when I first started talking to him, you know, as a head coach, you don't know exactly if that interest level was 100%, but he made it very clear early on that it was, and we sat down a number of times and then finally pulled the trigger today, obviously.
And when you talked to him, it was obviously head coach to head coach. In those conversations, Brett, what made him decide being a head coach right now, which he had been for 5 years, wasn't the answer, that he wanted to be a coordinator for you?
You know, I would say Dan can probably answer that better, but yeah, the things that I asked him, you know, just flat out was, you know, what was the thought process here, and he was very clear about the vision that he had for his career, for his family. He had done a lot of really good things there at Central Michigan, you know, not just the winning and losing, and some things that I hold near and dear to my heart, you know, the APR, you know, doing things the right way, playing in a way that makes you proud on the field as well as off the field. And I could tell that was very important to him. I'd followed his career, reached out to some people that he had worked with, and they just spoke volumes, you know, whether it was an equipment manager or a video director, a head coach, an assistant coach that had worked with him. They all just kept, you know, praising who he was and what he stands for. So I'm very excited. You know, to leave a head coaching position, you had to think there was something special waiting, and I know we have it here at Arkansas.
From Chaney to Enos, what will be the biggest difference that we see offensively, Coach?
Well, I hope it's a very subtle thing, but only a subtle thing, and I don't want our players to go through a whole lot of transition. We've talked about maybe some things we'll ID a little bit differently, but we've got a senior quarterback. Dan in his career has guided 2 players in his first year as a new coach with a senior quarterback to the best years of their career, so we hope that handles the same way with Brandon Allen, and just some little things that hopefully mean a lot more wins.
Think back just a year from now. You all had just lost 9 in a row, and I know the fan base was down. I know you had to be down a little bit, Coach. And now you fast forward a year, and it's amazing how different things are. How do you describe what you remember then and how it's changed in the way you feel right now, today?
You know, it's probably, you think it's easy for me to say that, but Dari, I wasn't down. I knew where we were going. I felt good about the progress that we made. I knew we'd have another great addition to our signing class. At that time, I was replacing not only a defensive coordinator, but 3 defensive coaches overall. So to have the results we made this year defensively, you know, you don't hire a resume. You hire a person. You hire what they stand for. And I think Coach Enos is going to bring a lot to this table, and hopefully we'll have the same dramatic results we had a year ago on the other side of the ball.
Brett, there are a lot of people that because of the way you finished the season, and we saw this program and what you preach take hold, that think you could challenge, this team could challenge for a Western Division title next season. And I don't want to jump the gun here, Coach, but I'm one of those people. What do you hear when or what do you think when you hear people say that? Well,
you know, I don't think it, I know it. I see what our guys go through. I know what we've persevered through. I know the quality of the coaches we have in the room. Jeff Long has given us great support to put us in a position we're in. And the biggest thing, our fan base, you know, there's not a lot of places you can walk down the street, call somebody a hog, and they love it. But it's all over the place here in Arkansas, and I think there's a lot of pride in that. So to have that kind of all come together, and of course we have another very challenging schedule, but it's one that's made us stronger over the years. And we're not going to jump to the next year. You know, if you try to, you know, get to the end of the rainbow, that pot of gold's never there. You got to enjoy the process, and we're going to jump into spring conditioning. We're going to jump into spring ball. We'll have summer workouts, fall camp, and then when we're ready to roll next fall, I think we'll be in a very good position.
Coach, always great talking with you. Congrats on the hire, and best of luck from here on out, but we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. Woo pig.